And now we're moving into the section of our agenda where this budding community rights support organization introduces itself to all of you. Again, my name's Layla Johnson, and I'm going to do my best to give a brief description of who we are and what we're doing. And then these folks are going to have a couple minutes to introduce themselves in relationship to their work with the group. So we're all complicated and we could all go on and on about who we are and what we've done, but I'm interested in you guys understanding what skills people are bringing to this organization and what they hope to share with all of you. So here we are. Paul invited the four of us and three others to Minneapolis to have a weekend workshop or a weekend retreat, planning and dreaming and imagining what we would do as a support organization. And the number one thing that came out was, we really want to serve the people who are doing this amazing work on the ground in their communities, and we want to be extremely responsive to the needs of local communities and really listen carefully and really foster a sense of ownership of the movement among the people in each individual's community. I don't know how to say it other than that we really want you to own the work that you're doing, and we want to create tools that help you move into that ownership and move into that leadership so that it looks like we're not even doing anything. I'm going to turn it over to then each individual person to describe what they're doing in this organization and their role, giving a sort of disclaimer that we met for 3 days. That's not nearly enough time to cross all the T's and dot all the I's and stamp the official papers, so we're still growing it, we're still evolving it. You're seeing it very new and not yet coalesced, so it's exciting for everyone. Well, sure, I'll introduce myself again. I'm Layla Johnson. I'm here because I'm doing a lot of sort of administrative work on this project, sort of big picture holding, working in fundraising, working in like the structural aspects of our group. I am the contact person for our group. First point of contact at this point would be through me. My email address is going to be on a little form that we're going to hand out to everyone here. And through me, I will understand which of our other lovely experts you need to speak with. That's good. That's me.
Okay, is this good? Hello, my name is Jane Ann Morris, and thank you. First, I'm glad to be anywhere talking about this, but I'm especially glad to be here because it's real encouraging for me. And I look forward to talking to many of you later as things work out. I'm a corporate anthropologist, and I got to be one because I wrote a dissertation on a tribe. They called themselves a utility company that wanted to strip mine huge areas of Texas for a fuel with a BTU value less than that of cow chips. And I wrote the dissertation on them as a tribe in the anthropology department, so I'm a corporate anthropologist. After that, I wrote a book on organizing, on what we'd learned from that really long process, and most of it was in the regulatory agencies, almost anyone that you could name, both federal and state levels. Then, just at the time when I was beginning to think, gosh, you know, even if you do everything right, you really don't have a very good chance of winning for any length of time if you're doing the regulatory dance. I ran into a group who was having the same problem. They were asking, if we're so good and we work so hard and we're right and we're doing everything right with regulatory hoops, why aren't we winning? And their big question led us all to look into the history of corporate law. And so I basically spent the last 20 years working on the intersection of questions of democracy and why isn't that working, with a very closely related question of how are these corporate constitutional protections getting in there and how are they interfering with the democratic process. So after 20 years of working on that, one way or another, and that's how I met Paul Cienfuegos, I'm very glad to be here because it looks like through the movement called community rights that that's finally coming to fruition. So thanks for letting me be here.
Hello. I'm going to make this go up again. Okay. My name's Malia Burkhart. Hey. Let's see. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and you might have seen me last year presenting a street theater production called What the Frack that I was doing with Evie Barr and some other amazing creative people, which is part of how I got involved. So our organization was able to outline a few mapping of, like, we go to a community, we spark, like we're like, this is an idea of how we approach it, which is what Paul does, or we sow a seed, right? And then it's the development period that we're seeing the support of, and so that includes outreach. It includes outreach like education, getting the broader public to know, outreach as far as getting more people to join your effort, and then I would be involved with the part that has to do with evolving group culture. There's a lot of, it's a long-term venture, right, to develop an ordinance, which would be the third step, and then how do you handle challenges would be the last step, the plan for that. So the development phase, right, is like a plant growing, and so a lot of conflicts arise between groups, dynamics like sexism and racism and other ageism or insider-outsiderism, all these schisms, right, divisions, and then so I started working with a group called Training for Change. They do trainings using direct education. It's kind of a fun, game-based method for getting the dynamics that are happening within your group out on the table so you can talk about them. So you have an experience together and you can talk about it right away. And that's just one of the tools that they use for helping groups to kind of work out the stuff that's in the room, but no one knows how to talk about it. And so I would be helping people learn how to lead those activities. So that's me.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Sherman-Warren, and I need to adjust the mic. So, there's another ism that we need to address within this movement and within our larger society, which is expertism. And I get billed as an expert because I have a bar number in Washington State. I don't have a bar number in this state or in the adjacent states. Which is something that we as a movement need to address. This movement is not led by lawyers. It can't be led by lawyers if it's going to win. The law that we use is not law that is recognized by the state courts and the federal courts. The law that we use is the Declaration of Independence. And so if we're going to do that, we need as a community to recognize that we understand what is the law that needs to exist in our place and not let a corporation or King Walker tell us what laws we can use here. So to continue that story that Malia started about sowing seeds of change, those germinate, they grow, they bear fruit. What happens often is a corporation will come in and say, you know, those seeds that you've grown, you started growing them on our property. And so you don't get to enjoy that fruit. You don't get to, as a community, decide what you're going to live as. So that's something I've been working on for the last 2 years as an attorney, dealing with the corporations when they come in and tell us that we can't make laws in our own community. I'm very honored to be able to do this work, and I'm excited to continue it in new ways with communities here. So I've really enjoyed meeting many people in the room over the last week. Paul and I went on a little road trip through 4 different communities. And, well, we actually had a little stop in another community, too, and got muffins in the morning. And so, but most of my time is spent sitting in front of my desk, reading law, doing research, and writing and attempting to defend the community bills of rights. So we've been doing a lot of brainstorming about organizing and that legal defense and how those things fit together and where we're really going in this movement. So I look forward to continuing that conversation with everybody here.
I'm Paul Cienfuegos, and you probably have some sense of what a huge honor it is for me to be working with these incredible souls and creating a new national community rights support organization. I have been doing this work for 19 years. I've been leading workshops that are not very different than what I lead now since 1995. And for most of that time, I've never really had an opportunity to be working with other experts in a more collegial and equal and transparent and horizontal relationship. And so it's a completely new experience for me to be able to pull together a group of people who are really committed to good, democratic, ethical, just process and culture shift work at the deepest level that's going to get us where we need to go. The other 3 folks who are not here today but are part of our initial conversation, who we met with for 3 days last weekend, Jono Ruff, who many of you know as a core member of the Winneshiek County Community Rights Group, Betsy Barnum, who's in Minneapolis, and at one time was the state Green Party chairperson in Minnesota, and ran for many years the Great River Earth Institute out of her home in Minneapolis, and has a lot of popular education history. And why am I blanking on the last name? Thank you. And Allie Boker, who is from Mendocino County, California, and is one of the most amazing 20-something sparks in this national movement. She's one of the leaders of the first community rights ordinance campaign that's passed in California in Mendocino County last November. So it's an absolute honor to be working with these folks and to figure out a different way to support local communities, in a more engaged and more horizontal way to support local communities. So thank you so much.
Paul left out a crucial part of his introduction, and he would like a moment to frame himself in the boundaries of our organization for all of you. So here's Paul.
In a way, it's almost not essential to say it, but I did forget to say it, and that is, you already know what my role has been, and that's the role that I absolutely love playing. It's to spark new communities. It's to sow seeds in new places and get folks excited about this paradigm-shifting work and help people to start working through their own colonized minds to realize that there is a structure of law here that's a problem. It is worth looking at. It is something we can deal with. There might actually be some hopefulness attached to that process. And I see my work really as dropping pebbles in ponds. That's what I do all over the United States. And a surprising number of those pebbles have impact. And now I have a group to turn those pebbled organizations over to. Yay.
So in keeping with this theme of deep engagement and horizontal organizing and wanting to be extremely responsive, Jane Ann is going to speak a little bit to start sparking in the minds of everyone here, what are the things that we need? There are some obvious things that we think we need to do this organizing, but maybe we haven't thought of all of them, so Jane Ann's going to give us a little, open the envelope, so to speak.
Thanks again. First thing, I want to get this out of the way. I'm holding in my hands a list of the 137 steps which you must follow in order to have a successful community rights campaign. You may make no substitutions, you can't skip any steps, and you can't bring anything in from outside, okay? Now I want to make it completely clear what our perspective is on this, okay? So that's my first point. If I could only make one, that's it. That said, my job here is to spend a few minutes trying to get you thinking of things you really would like help or support on. So I'm just going to run through some stuff. Do you have a 30-second version of your speech? Does it work? Have you shared that with other members of your group? Do you have a 3-minute version? Does it work? Have you shared it? Do you have like a 10-minute version? Okay, if you get 10 minutes at a neighborhood group meeting, for example. So if you have those versions that work, share them with each other. Maybe they don't work. Talk about that too. If you do use these versions and someone responds to you, what do they say? What are the first comments they make? Are you keeping track of that? It may be that 1 or 2 things come up every time you have a conversation longer than 3 minutes. You need to keep track of those. And then maybe you want a piece of literature if you just get to grab someone for a minute. Out of one pocket, your generic basic piece of literature. Out of your other pocket, something that says, and by the way, we're giving a talk at the public library next week. If you've developed to the point where there are 5 questions everybody asks you, and you are pretty good on 4 of them, but the 5th one you're not sure about, ask us. There's a lot of experience represented in this group. And or make up a frequently asked question brochure. A lot of other things going on, since I know you're all at different stages of the groups. You know, some of you are still forming the group, working on what you might like to have in the ordinance. Others of you are beyond that, and some of you are kind of on a rerun. But one of the things you usually need to consider is volunteers and getting people to come to your group and keep coming. That's the kind of internal things that some of us spend more time on. But the volunteer thing's really interesting too, because they need to be cared for and fed. You know, so if you're in a situation where you give a presentation and 10 people say they'll volunteer and you invite them to come over for their working meeting next Wednesday and you only get 1 volunteer, think about that. There are reasons for that. There are things you can do to improve that. On the other hand, say 10 people say they'll volunteer and Wednesday you have 12 people. On the one hand, that's great, but it's not great if you're not ready for them. If you look at these 12 people and say like, oh, we'll find something for you to do, that's not what a volunteer wants to hear. So there's all kinds of ideas about the care and feeding of volunteers and the internal workings of your group, which you need to pay attention to. There's also the delicate matter of, we'll call them outside researchers at your meetings, something that other people might call spies. Contrary to popular opinion in some quarters, this isn't unusual. It's basically the rule. If you're having public meetings and you're getting anywhere at all, people are going to send people in there. So it's in your interest to have some idea how to handle this, both so that you can not have more problems than you're going to anyway, and also so it doesn't tear your group apart from the inside, which can become very difficult. People start looking at each other saying, okay, who are you? You know, it's just devastating. And groups have been dealing with this for a long time, and it's good to have some of their experiences to share. Other kinds of things. News media comes in. Do you have someone designated to deal with them? They are trained to take you by surprise, you know, to get you to say something on the phone when they just called you that you will later regret. So you want to have a process of who handles these things, how you make decisions within your group as to how you're going to respond, and then make sure, you know, it doesn't have to be strict, but you have to understand what it is so you don't end up with 3 people saying different things to a news person who's going to blare it all over the news media. And it's always going to be the thing you wish you didn't say. Negotiations. There are all kinds of negotiations involved in this. Some maybe later in the process, but some that your neighbors have already undergone. Now, people who do negotiations, they go to school for this. They specialize in this. Then often they get law degrees and they go to law firms. So when the negotiations are happening with your group about the ordinance, about land leases and other kinds of special agreements, these people have devoted their entire lives to figuring out how to negotiate, okay? They have all kinds of tips and tricks which are perfectly public knowledge, but most people don't know them. And if you don't know they're coming, they can work on you the first time around and you can make some terrible mistakes. So there are people here who have experience with that and know some of the basic tips you know, because if you know what's coming, you'll be able to handle it much better. In my final minute, I would like to say those are just some ideas of what you may be thinking about. Does anybody here want to raise a hand and just name some obstacle or problem or challenge that hasn't come up yet? Just give us some ideas for everyone to think about.
A group is, there you go. Since '06, we've been meeting as just a generic progressive group trying to get good candidates elected, but we do a lot of other things, and one of the projects we do is community education. Meanwhile, when elections come up, there are people that fill the empty spaces in our group, and they pull people away from our group to do a lot of legwork.
Okay, let me summarize this,
Sure.
and let's give one other person a chance.
Okay.
Prioritizing within a group and having the discipline like to focus on what you've prioritized?
Right.
Okay, anyone else? One or two people quickly want to just raise a problem or challenge that hasn't come up yet?
In the anti-frac sand mining group that I came from, I experienced what somebody brought up, ageism/sexism, and you had talked about how to talk those issues out, and I would like it if our newly forming CR group could have that at the forefront of our minds as we move forward, so we know how to create an atmosphere that is perhaps more free of that.
That's great, thank you. One more, and then the next person will start up here.
How do we even get them engaged? They don't come, they don't care, they want to bury their head in the sand. The community.
Awesome. So this is a great segue into our next, we're going to spend the next 20 minutes. Malia here has printed out some awesome forms that she's going to introduce, and then everyone's going to get one. She's going to pass them out now, and you'll be able to fill this out with some of the things that you didn't get a chance to say during that really brief 2-minute shout out. Here's Malia.
So we know that we're all excited to see each other, and probably over lunch we're going to be too busy focusing in on each other and talking. So we wanted to give just a few minutes for everyone to just sit quietly and be with your own thoughts and write down. We are here for you, like we said, and we're in a phase of developing. And we really want to make sure that what we're developing is something you actually want and need. So, yeah, just these questions. What problems or barriers come up most often in your community rights organizing? And what do you most want and need from a community rights support organization? In addition, we just want your permission to contact you or not about these responses that you're giving, whether or not you want to be on a contact list. And then it's kind of a startup thing with very little funding. We're looking for support, and it could be either people you know or yourself for some of these skills are specific ones that we're seeking. So maybe you know someone with just loves doing website design, you know, or can offer, loves doing Twitter or things like that. And then just note at the bottom is the contact information for Layla. So if you have further thoughts about this that you'd like to share with us, make sure you copy that before you turn this in. Thank you.
15 minutes?
Let's take 10.
10. We'll take 10 minutes.
10 minutes. And then we have a fun activity.